everybody. This is Chevalier of Chevalier Life, and this is Conversations with Chevalier. Tonight we got a special guest, Chris Young, my man, young entrepreneur. He is an amazing gentleman. We're going to have a conversation with him. We're going to bring him in just a second. Hey, how you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. What's up, my brother?
Man, taking it easy, man. Enjoying a cigar, sit back, anticipating this moment where we get an opportunity to have a conversation, brother. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was great. It was great. Any chance that I get to be around people I care about to enjoy the pleasures of life, such as food, drinks, something good to smoke, something good to wear, just enjoying all the beautiful moments of life that sometimes we take for granted. And when they get stripped from us, you start to have gratitude for it.
Yeah, man, that is amazing, man. First of all, before we even get started, man, thank you for coming on and talking to me tonight. I know it was kind of short notice. We talked about it a couple times, but based on the show I did, I do another show called The Lounge every week with a brother out of Houston named Ray True Life, and we got to talking about prison, and so it just seemed like a natural progression, man, for me to, circle back around and talk to you. So before we get into it, I'm gonna do my intro, and then we're gonna get this thing started. Welcome, everybody. This is Conversations with Chevalier. Of course, I'm Chevalier with my special guest, Chris L. Young, entrepreneur, amazing gentleman with an amazing story. Tonight, I am smoking Nova cigar, and I am sipping on a little Old Forester. That's what the vibe is going to be tonight. Chris, I don't think you're smoking tonight, are you?
Nah. I don't mess with the cigars. When I used to mess with the cigars, I like the little leaf in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used
Yeah,
to
man.
switch to sweet, man. I ain't gonna lie. I used to support switch to sweet to the utmost, but right now, I just chill. Drink on my water. I drink a gallon of water every day. And when it is time, I don't mind drinking some Remy Martin, some Douce, some De Leon. I got to support my
Yeah.
brothers Jay and Puff.
Well, me and you, we've had an opportunity to have a drink or two together in the past. So I see how you do it,
Yeah,
man. And,
yeah.
and, and I really like your style. So let's get into it. I don't even want to waste no time. We got a lot of information. Normally the show's an hour. I don't care if we go over, man. I think your story is a story that everybody needs to hear, man. August 28th, 2014, you were sentenced to life in jail for a low-level drug offense, man. And I remember reading your story, man, and hearing about your story and all of the things that was going on in the background. And man, I was completely amazed. And that was the first time that I opened up my eyes to this whole mandatory minimum sentencing thing, those guidelines and how unfair they can be. Now I understand, and there'll probably be people on here that are going to say, yeah, man, but it's warranted. You do the crime, you do the time. But the time should be proportionate to the crime. I mean, and so clearly in your case that wasn't, man. So before all of that happened to you, man, tell me about yourself, brother. You're from Clarksville, Tennessee. Tell me how the young life was for you.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee. We on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. So, I got some guys in Middle Kentucky I had love for, and I used to rotate with, and I got some guys in Middle Tennessee that I rotated with and got some love for. So, unfortunately, my mother was addicted to crack cocaine, and my father was never in my life. I never met him, never even seen a picture of him. You could be him, Chevalier, and I wouldn't know.
Our
Yeah,
eyes are similar. We got some similar eyes going on there.
So, my brother, my older brother, he was 3 years older than me. He took upon the responsibility of being not only my big brother, but being like a mother and a father to me. And growing up without having the financial resources and the material objects that everybody around us had, we followed the path of a lot of the older guys around us that had some of the best material things, which was that of selling drugs. I started selling weed at a young age. I was like 11, 12. And
Wow.
then, eventually we progressed to selling crack. And that was the lifestyle. That was something that was not just you do here and there. It was something we woke up and did daily. It was actually how we lived. We woke up, And just like you go clock in at your job, we woke up and we grabbed that pack and we sold crack every day. Unfortunately, that comes with a lot of stress and depression.
Mhm. So at 11 years old, man, you started walking down that path, man. Like I can't even imagine. And I like to say all the time, you hear me say it, I'm a hood kid from Gary, Indiana. But my journey was completely different. And I think, my hood life was completely different. I like to say sometimes that life was hard, man, but when I sit down and really think about it and think about some of the things we've talked about, my life wasn't hard at all. I didn't have to do those things, man. And you were in a military town too. So was either one of your parents ever military? That's an army town, I believe.
Yes, it is Fort Campbell. So
Hmm.
no, my mother was not in the service, and I don't know my biological father, but my mother's ex-husband, who I revere and love as my daddy, we called him Mickey. Mickey was a part of the Air Force at one point in time, and he was honorably discharged. And so, yes, I already had a connection to Fort Campbell. I always had that awareness of it because it's in my city, and Mickey used to be a part of the Air Force. But no, I didn't get the chance to enlist. And me knowing me now, that wouldn't have been something that I was interested in,
Hmm.
but I do see that it can be a viable path for a lot of young guys, especially the young guys that are interested in the mechanisms of firearms, interested in traveling the world and trying to defend our country. You know what I'm saying? It's something that a lot of guys could transfer the courage that they have from the streets to something more beneficial and productive. Because it takes a lot of courage and guts and nuts to engage in some of the activities that we engage in out there. And I feel like that's a transferable skill. So I definitely recommend some young guys, instead of engaging in the lifestyle of the streets, to choose maybe that, to choose joining the military.
So sometimes, man, just hearing, different people's accounts of their life on the streets. Sometimes I feel like, and I don't know if you agree that sometimes they don't choose the streets, the streets choose you. Would you agree with that? In a sense that you got to do what you got to do to make it. Do you feel
Yeah,
like that was your story?
yeah. I didn't choose for my mother to get high. I didn't choose for us to be in the neighborhood we in. I didn't choose for cocaine to ever be sold in America. Cocaine cannot grow in America. The coca plant is not something that can grow in America. So,
Right.
all of those were external factors that I couldn't control. It was something that was already variables in my equation of my life that I didn't choose. Now, did I choose to sell drugs? Yes. So I agree and I disagree. I agree that unfortunately some of the cards that people are dealt, they got to play them. They don't
Hmm.
have other cards to deal at the table. But I definitely am a strong believer in choices, the power of your choices, the power of your mind. And I understand that a lot of us lack the awareness and to have the accountability of our
Right.
choices. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It
Right.
takes a very conscious person to really try to look at the corollary of every choice you make and what it brings about. And a lot of us
Definitely.
don't have that peace to sit up and contemplate our choices that in depth. You know what I'm saying? It takes time to sit up and just dissect and analyze everything that you've done, everything that you're going to do.
Right.
And a lot of us don't have that time. They don't have that peace. They have the bills that need to be paid, so they got to go clock in. They have kids getting on their nerves and trying to get provided for.
Definitely.
They have, like I said, the external factors of whatever environment they're stuck in. So it is very hard to sit up and analyze and dissect all your choices. So yes, some people don't choose it, but I am a strong believer in being aware of what you are choosing.
Definitely. But man, at 11 years old, you know, I can't imagine even having to have to make that choice to get out there. But you mentioned that your brother was 2 years older, right? He's
Three.
2 years, three
He's three
years
years
older.
older. Yeah.
And so was he primarily, he was out there with you, but was he primarily doing things or was you doing your own thing 11, 12, 13 years old? How was that? What was that
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
like for you being that young?
He was already doing his thing. And
Hmm.
actually, when my memoir comes out, people will read about this. We when I actually stopped selling weed and started selling crack, we actually got to
Mhm.
fighting about it because I used to always stand on the block all day, all night. And one day he came up and he kind of like mushed me in the head, like, what you doing up here? And I'm like, going somewhere. You know, by this time I'm 14, 15. I'm like, I'm grown. You can't tell me nothing. He was like, man, quit standing up here. I'm like, gone somewhere. And, you know, we had a little tussle. You know, he wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just trying to admonish me, trying to really just really correct and check me in the only way he knew, in the only
Right,
form of love and correction that he knew, which was to, you know, get a little rough with me. And
right,
it
right.
came to the point where he was like, you know, I don't want you standing up here. I prefer you be with me. And so I started hustling out of the spot with him. And the spot actually happened to be my mother's house. My mother was locked up at the
Wow.
time. She was incarcerated. And so he was already selling out of her house. And so we started selling out of her house together, which led
So
to, go
no, go
ahead,
ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was gonna say, so basically you guys were on your own. No adult supervision, nobody to take care of you at all. It was just you taking care of yourself.
Yes, primarily, but I have to
Mhm.
give credit and always acknowledge Big Mama. So Big Mama is the closest and only thing I had to a grandmother. You know, I love her to
Okay.
death. Most people in the neighborhood either called her Miss Dot or called her Big Mama. And they called her that for a reason. It's because she always had her door open to any and everybody in the neighborhood. If you needed something to eat, if you needed to take a shower. And so we was living with no lights and water. It had got so bad for my mother's addiction and so bad for us. We was living with no lights and water. And
Wow.
people knew, people got the gossiping about it. And, you know, we going to school and unfortunately we musky, we stinking, and we got holes in our shoes and our clothes and stuff. And Big Mama, right when Child Protective Services was finna intervene and take us and put us in foster care, she agreed to adopt us legally, and we started living with Big Mama. But even though Big Mama was now providing the necessity for us, she was
Mhm.
providing shelter, she was providing a warm meal and somewhere to go to sleep. She couldn't provide shoes and clothes, and unfortunately, she also couldn't provide that love at the time because she didn't have the capacity. She's
Right,
one person and she's trying to
right,
help so many people. At the pinnacle of us living with her, it was 11 of us living in a 840 square foot house. That's anybody that knows houses or know Big Mama's house. That's a small house for so
right.
many kids to be living in. And so she was providing the necessities for us, but that wasn't enough. You know, we wanted more and we felt like we deserved more. And we made the choice of selling drugs to try to get more.
Wow, man. Man. So, your brother, and I'm gonna go into that. We're gonna touch that real quick and get on past that. I
Mm-hmm.
know that he was that caretaker for you, man, provider, role model, big brother.
Yeah.
Sometimes he had to pop your collar a little bit, but
Yeah.
later in life, man, when you were like 18, you experienced something traumatic. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, yes, yes. I found my brother dead by suicide. And that is something that is very common in the African American community, in the
Yes,
hoods, in the ghetto. A lot
yes.
of people think there's something that is not prevalent in our neighborhoods. It is. I know a lot of young men who have made that very hard decision, a decision that they made out of an intense pain, trying to heal the pain that they was experiencing and enduring, but just unfortunately had impaired problem solving skills. And that was the best way that they felt they could get away from the pain they was feeling. And my brother, he committed suicide at the age of 21. He was a month away from being 22.
Wow.
Yes, yes. Next week will actually be the anniversary. It'll be 16 years. It was New Year's Day,
Wow.
2007.
Wow, man. Let me tell you something. First of all, I'm sorry. My condolences to you. I would imagine I've never been in that situation, but that's a pain that never goes away. But let me ask you something, Chris. And I had all these questions I wanted to ask you, but
Yeah.
as always, I get way off topic, man, because it's a conversation.
Yeah,
It's not a scripted kind of show. I have some stuff to guide me with.
exactly. And since it's not
So
scripted, I'm finna play with my light. I feel like I got a shadow, so y'all excuse me. Did it look better?
do what you do.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, man, just that being said about young fellas, man, or young men in general. You know, I have a lot of conversation on my other show that I do. We talk about bail transparency, communication, learning to be vulnerable, man. And
Hmm.
I feel like sometimes in our community, you know, they say that's for all men, but I think more so in our community, we come up at a young age, just like you, man, where we have to take it all in and bear so much on our shoulders at such a young age. We never get an opportunity, man, to just be kids, you know, and to like, we never taught ways to release that pressure or to release that pain or insecurity, whatever we feel. And it seems like we become angry, man, sometimes. I don't know what you think about that, but that's kind of where how I look at it. What do you think?
Yeah, pressure. Pressure has to be released. You know, you take a Sprite bottle right now, you shake it up, you shake it up, you shake it up, you throw it around, you shake it up. Eventually, it will pop that top off. The pressure has to be released. And like you said, we don't get those opportunities to exert that energy. You know, a man automatically, when he's going through puberty, when he's going through very traumatic events that induces stress and depression, he has a level of energy that's built up that has to be exerted. And we're not taught different ways and coping mechanisms to exert that energy to deal with the stress, to deal with the depression.
Right,
And a lot of it comes because our necessities aren't provided for. The
right,
psychologist Abraham Maslow, he stressed the fact that your psyche develops the more you have things provided for you. And a lot of us, we aren't having the proper clothing, the proper shelter, the proper nutrition. You know, we eating junk food that we can get out of somebody's kitchen, a bag of chips, a couple of zebra
right.
cakes, and penny candy from the store. You know, we
Oh,
ain't
yeah.
getting to really have that peace of mind that, okay, if I'm hungry, I can go in the kitchen and get this. If I want to change clothes, I got this outfit to put on. If I go to school, I don't have to hear people cracking jokes or talking shit. You know what I'm saying? That is something that a lot of people take for granted, and a lot of people try to claim, okay, that's just children being children. You're right and you're wrong. You're right.
Right.
Banter and cracking jokes goes on with any demographic and
Exactly.
any socioeconomic status, but it's worse when you're poor. When you're
Right.
poor, the jokes become a whole lot more heavy. It's a burden to carry
Yeah.
to be able to deal with your friends cracking those jokes. So you ain't getting the mental space to actually develop your
Right.
perspective of the world, your perspective of yourself.
So when you were growing up, man, 14, 15, 16, how did you deal with that pressure, bro?
All the wrong ways. All the
Yeah.
wrong ways. Every way that somebody right now is rapping about, lying about, or telling the truth about the drugs, the women, the materialistic consumption, you know, just being real brainwashed about what shoes I had on, what clothes I had on, what car I was driving. That is what I was finding my value in. That was where I was getting my dignity from, not realizing that I was making a mistake. But we don't know that at the time. You know, in the streets, they call me soldier. Anybody that
Mm.
know me from the penitentiary or from the streets, you know my name. They call me soldier. Soldier C was the actual nickname, but you know most folks just call me soldier. And identity leads to dignity. So I took
Right.
pride in that nickname. I took pride in knowing that I felt like I would never run from nothing. That if it came down to it, I was going to stand on my morals and ethics and be on the front line. And that is a very sad reality of our neighborhoods.
Right.
These young men are finding their value from their identity, whether their identity is being known as the shooter, the robber, the pimp, the Mac, the gangster, you
Right.
know, whatever term or phrase they want to use, cuz, blood, folk, goddamn king, whatever title that is making them feel like this is my identity and they're feeling some self-value from that. They're feeling some form of dignity from that. And they shouldn't, unfortunately, ever feel like, okay, this is what I am. You should always feel like you're more than that.
So look, man, you did all of this, and it's something to hear this. Again, I've talked to you at length, and even now, I'm getting a lump in my throat just thinking about what life had to be like for you, bro. And man, that's something, man. I look, like I say, I think a lot of times a lot of us take for granted that we think our lives are hard. We never look at the next person and what they might be going through. We assume certain things because things look a certain kind of way. And man, hats off to you for making it through that, bro. But in 2010, December 2010, you were arrested. I think I read that it was a roundup type situation, man, and you got caught up, and that started you on your journey, in being incarcerated, man. And what was that day like for you, man? I think it was December 10th, 2010. What was that
Yeah.
like for you? Because I think that's changed a whole lot for you in your life real fast, man.
Yeah, that was a life-changing day.
Wow.
I never forget that day for good reasons and bad reasons. Good reasons
Yeah.
because, like you said, I let it be the catalyst. I let it be the day that was going to change my life. I made a whole complete 180 from that day to right now. But that day started off with me trying to be the best man I could be with what I knew how to do, which
Right.
was try to send money to my guys in the penitentiary. I went and sent some money to a lot of my folks in the jail, in the prison. Then I went Christmas shopping for my niece, my little cousin, and them, trying to take care of the kids that I had love for, hoping they wouldn't have to endure the things I endured, not having Christmas presents, not having birthday presents. So when I wrapped up my Christmas shopping, I never knew that I was finna get arrested by federal agents and that my life would never be the same. So I go to meet my friend, and meeting my friend was the last time I was free. I ended up getting
Wow.
slammed on the ground, taken off my feet, and placed in the custody of the U.S. Marshals. And from that moment on, I was sitting in a county jail waiting to go to court, waiting to go to trial to see what fate had in store for me.
Man, you were 22 years old at
Mm-hmm.
that very moment, man. When you first hit that ground, when they first, took you, what was you thinking? What was your first thought? Do you remember?
Yeah, hurry up and get on downtown so I can make bond. Cause we, yeah, we didn't know it was the feds at first. So in our mind, we was like, come on, man, let's go. Because unfortunately, I had been arrested a lot of times before, and so in
Wow.
my mind, it's like, come on, let's go and get downtown. Let's go get me processed so I can make bond. But it wasn't going to be no bond.
Yeah.
It is not something that people are aware of. A lot of people think that bond is automatic, that bond is required. No, no. If you getting arrested by the feds, I can't speak for the state. Most state cases you can get a bond, but for the feds, it's very rare for a young black man to get a bond. We see corporate executives that get arrested for embezzlement, money laundering, wire fraud, all that, and they got access to hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars, and they're not considered a flight risk. They'll get bond. But a young black man who probably has barely left his state or the state next to his state is considered a flight risk. A young black man
Wow.
that don't even got a passport is considered a flight risk quicker than this executive that got access to hundreds of millions of dollars. Sam Bankman-Fried, right now, he's on a $250 million bond.
Right.
They told all 33 of us, sit in this county jail till you go to court.
Wow, man. I see Brittany K. Barnett just said no bond in the feds, buddy.
Mm.
She said that's Attorney Barnett
Yeah.
who's a pro at all of this. So there y'all see it right there from the professional itself. There's no bond in the feds. But that being said, man, so that happened. How long did you sit in jail before you went to trial?
Sat there 3 years just waiting to go to trial. And
Damn.
then we end up going to trial August of 2013. And it took a month. We was eventually found guilty of all charges. It
Now I
was
read
me
that it
and two
was
more.
Oh, okay. Because I read that when they arrested y'all, they arrested over 30 people that day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Altogether, it was like 37 people that got arrested. But between people cooperating and people that really didn't have nothing to do with the case, they only ended up indicting 33 of us. And out of that 33, only three of us went to trial.
Wow. So did the others, were they plea agreements and things like that?
Yeah, everybody had played out. Everybody had played out, and most of the plea agreements was to just accept their responsibility, to accept their guilt, and go and do their time. We had snitches now. We had a nice amount of people that snitched, but I gotta give the respect and the proper acknowledgement to those guys that didn't. For it to be 30 some of us, most of the men stood up and they took their time like they should, honorably. And three of us, me and two more people, we decided to go to trial. We felt like that the amount of time that they was offering and the way they charged us, because I'm willing to admit, and I feel like I can speak for them too, none of us was saying we was innocent, as in we never sold drugs. We were saying that we wasn't a part of this grand scheme, this grand
Oh, okay.
conspiracy, and that we was guilty of the actual charges we was charged with, and that we should go do decades and decades of time. They was offering us 22 years. That's a ridiculous amount of time. I was 22 years I was 22 years old when I was arrested. So you telling me to go live my life all over again inside a prison. In the feds, you got to do 85% of your time. So that's all the time. And I just couldn't see myself agreeing to that, because I knew that what I had did, what I was culpable for, was not worth me reliving my whole life in prison.
Wow, man. Wow. So did you, when, as you went through that process and the plea agreements and refusing that, after you refused it, how did you have to sit in another extended amount of time in jail after you refused the 22-year deal?
Yeah, like I said, it took altogether 3 years just to go to trial. But once I went to trial and I lost, I was found guilty. It still took another year for me to get sentenced. So I didn't get sentenced till
Wow.
2014.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, you were you had a low level drug offense, right? There was no violence or no uh, there was no violence to it or anything. It wasn't considered a serious drug charge, was it?
No, it was no violence with it, as in for how serious the actual drug quantity or the drug activity. All
Hmm.
that's subjective. The prosecutor will
Right.
say this, we'll say this. It's all subjective. At the end of the day, yes, I was selling drugs, but it
Right.
wasn't worth me going to do 22 years over. It was not worth that. I don't think no person should be subjected to that amount of time for taking advantage of a market that they didn't create. It's a market that does harm people. It does
Hmm.
bring destruction with it. I will be the first to admit that, but I do not think it's worth people doing 20, 30, 40, 50 years over, because at the end of the day, once again, cocaine cannot grow in America at all.
Right.
And so this is a market, this is a actual system that was not created by us, and that unfortunately we tried to use it as a way to progress. Every form of progression in this country has been tried to be exploited by some people.
Right.
This demographic, whether it be Italians, whether it be Irish, whether it be Russian, unfortunately, the descendants of slaves, black people, when we try to exploit this market that they created, we got the brunt of it, and they use it as another mechanism to enrich themselves. Mass incarceration is about money at the end of the day.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt there. One of the interesting things about that, as you said, that I thought about something that I read when I was doing some research before we did the interview. When you right before you went to trial, Eric Holder put out a memo to U.S. attorneys throughout the country that they needed to look at the sentencing guidelines on an individual case by case basis. And he specifically said in that memo that it was his desire that they would use the sentencing guidelines, more effectively. And I think the way he said it, and I can't remember it exactly, but he said that it was his desire that you reserve the harsh sentences for the serious, violent offenders,
Yes,
but you received a life sentence.
2 life sentences plus 5 years ran wild. Yes,
Wow.
the memo that Eric Holder put out was literally one right before I went to trial. He put out another one right before I got sentenced, and he was urging prosecutors to not send people to prison with life sentences over drugs unless they was connected to cartels, unless they was connected to violence and stuff of that nature. 2 of the criteria is definitely that I had nothing to do with. I was not connected to a cartel. I didn't have no violence. And you're right. I still was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 5 years. Yeah.
So you was basically on that day sentenced to die in prison for a low
Yes,
level drug offense.
because the federal guidelines call for me to get a mandatory life sentence. And in the feds, life means life. Life means stay here till you are deceased. And so, yes.
Wow, man. I also read, interestingly enough, which I was very surprised to read, that your judge, Kevin Sharp,
Mhm.
that sentenced you, he made a statement during his sentencing that it was way out of whack, basically, that, those sentencing guidelines were way out of whack because he was having to basically go against his better judgment. He really didn't have a choice but to sentence you to life in jail for a low level crime, man. But later on, this guy will come back to impact your life another kind of way, huh?
Yes, yes, yes. Kevin Sharp. I'll never forget him. I'll always love him and he'll always be family to me. And when I say that, that's kind of shocking and absurd to some people. And like you said, they got to know the full story to know why.
Right.
I was sentenced to go die in prison. And this man resigned from a lifetime appointment. Federal judges don't have to be voted in like state judges.
Right.
Once they are a judge, unless they choose to quit or unless they break the law, they can be that judge forever. He chose to resign and speak out in protest against mandatory minimums. And I was the case he spoke about first. And I'll
Wow.
never forget that, and I'll forever appreciate that because that media attention and that support he gave me helped lead to me meeting the attorney that saved my life.
Hey, I'm just
It,
about to go there too. So tell me about this hotshot attorney that saved your life. And first of all, how long did you sit in prison before you found this attorney that would be the person to get you clemency?
I had already been incarcerated 7 years before I met Brittany.
Wow.
Yeah. So Brittany K. Barnett, she had already read one article about me because I was blessed that what made Judge Sharp want to resign and speak out in my favor was the fact he saw my potential. He saw my level of comprehension and my intellect. At my sentencing, everybody has the right to speak. Every single person that's going through a courtroom and convicted of a crime, you have a chance to speak. And during my allocution, I gave a speech that highlighted not only my story, putting all the variables in the equation, speaking on a lot of the hardships I endured and faced, but I also spoke on American history. I spoke on economics. I spoke on philosophy. I spoke on various branches of science and just everything that I could do if I was ever given a chance to be released. I just was showing him, look, I'm staying out of trouble. I'm consuming all this information. I'm retaining it, and I'm retaining it in a way it can be implemented to not only impact those where I come from, but to impact those that judge people like me and show them that no, you shouldn't judge me and stereotype me. You should see my value, see my worth, and assist me, invest in
Right.
me. And so Brittany had already read one of those articles speaking on my sentencing speech. And then Judge Sharp ended up resigning. And when he resigned, more articles came out. And a journalist that had did one of the original articles had sent her the Judge Sharp articles.
Wow.
And she asked Brittany, if you don't mind, could you speak to him? And Brittany agreed. And once me and her started speaking, The chemistry was there. She said, I'm going to devote my time and my efforts to getting you free, because this was something she was already embarking on. She had already resigned as a corporate attorney and began
Right.
representing people that was excessively sentenced under America's drug laws and trying to get them free. And she had already had some success. She had had about 9 clients get
Right.
out, 7 of them through Obama, and then another 2 through the courts. And she agreed to help me.
Wow. And so how long did that journey take when you guys first embarked on that together, man? How long did that journey take for you to finally get clemency? And what was that? And
So,
before you even go that far, what was that journey like, man? Like the highs and lows, I imagine there had to be plenty.
yeah, definitely, 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 because you got to understand, she planted those seeds from the moment she met me, and I didn't get free until January 2021. But the highs and lows were very extreme because I had a lot of good things happen to me, but in the midst of it, I had a lot of bad things happen to me. I hesitated on calling them bad because didn't nothing actually happen to me as an individual. They happened within the system. I
Right.
was at a medical facility to get surgery. And so the federal system has different levels of security classification. Because I had life, I'm automatically at high. I started out, you have super max, you have max, medium, low, camp. I started out at a max. I started out at a high. I got approved for surgery, so that knocked me down to a low while I'm getting surgery. But as soon as my surgery was over, I was shipped back to a max. But by the time I'm getting shipped back to this max, Brittany has already tapped into her Rolodex of supporters and advocates and has enlisted the help of Doug Deason,
Right.
of Mark Holden, of Kim Kardashian, and all of these amazing people with all of their influence and power. They're speaking out in favor of my release. They even had a meeting at the White House and spoke about my case directly with officials at the White House, including President Trump. And so I'm believing I'm going to get free. I'm believing I'm going to get released. But instead of getting released, I was shipped from the medical facility back to the maximum security penitentiary. And so I'm like, damn. And while I'm back at the maximum security, it is a very harsh environment. A lot of people think it's only because of the people there. Yes, the people there are making certain decisions, but you got to look at all the variables in the equation. And
Right.
the variables in the equation is no hot water. We went months with no hot water, being locked down for months at a time, men just stacked up inside this cell, not even allowed to bathe.
Wow,
Then
man.
when we come out, yeah, it's going to be violence. So there's a lot of times we'll be locked down for a month, come out violence, get locked down for 2 months, come out violence. And this whole time Brittany is fighting for me. Brittany had filed a 2255, which is a motion to get vacated, my sentence vacated, corrected, and she won. She won a very
Wow.
rare argument, and it got my sentence reduced from life to 14 years.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Wow,
But
man.
at the time, I'm still locked up. So she wanted to get me free. So she was still going to keep pushing and pushing till I got free. And I was blessed January 2021, I was given clemency and I was able to walk out the gates a free man.
So from the moment that she got your sentence reduced to 14 years, how long did it take from that point to a clemency date?
5 more months.
5 more months.
Mhm. Yeah. So from the
Man,
time I met Brittany to the time I got released, it was roughly almost 4 years.
wow. Wow, man. You know, it's amazing what people do when they put their mind to it. I've done some reading on Brittany. I've studied her. I've met her once or twice. She's a
Yeah.
country girl from Pagoda, Texas. Little girl that I think most people wouldn't even thought that she would have probably grew up to be the amazing person that she is. And I'm proud of her. I'm proud to know her. And wow, man, that's something, bro. So, you went through all of that. You received your clemency. in January 2021. When you got the call, what did you say? What was your first thought when you got the call that you were gonna be going home?
So when I first found out, the lieutenant walked up to the door, and I thought he was playing. I thought he was horse playing. You know what I'm saying? He was like, "Hey, young, come here," and I'm like, "What's up?" Because he one of them guys that joke around. He liked to horseplay, and I'm a people person, but I only allow myself to communicate and joke with certain personalities. He wasn't one of the personalities I like to joke with. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
right.
I speak. You know what I'm saying? But he came up and he was talking, and the way he was talking, I just thought he was horse playing. He was like, "Young, you want some good news?" I'm like, "What's up, man?" He was like, "What if I was to tell you was going home?" I'm like, "Quit playing with me, man. Go on somewhere. Quit playing with me." He was like, "Nah, for real. What if I was to tell
Wow.
you was going home?" And so I'm still thinking he horse playing. But when he stuck that key in the door and I heard that metal going that metal, I'm like, "Nah, he ain't gonna horseplay like that. That's too much playing around." So I said, "That's too much." So it hit me, but it really didn't hit me until I walked outside and I seen Brittany waiting, and I was able to give her a hug and thank her for all her hard work. And to be honest, it still was so surreal. It didn't smack me all the way until we was riding. We was riding in the truck, and she looked at me and she told me like to process it. She asked me like, really understand what just happened to you. You're free. It's over with. And in the middle of that, I asked the driver to cut on some music, and I asked him to play Lil Boosie, True Soldier. Lil Boosie
Mhm.
was one of my favorite artists growing up, and this particular song, not only did it resonate with me before prison, but at this moment of being released from prison, it was a moment of catharsis. It was
Mhm.
able to push out of me all of the emotions I had been holding in for this whole 10 and a half years. It was able to make me be sympathetic and empathize with my guys I had to leave behind that was still locked up. But it
Mhm.
was also something that made me, take pride in my character, to know that I stood on my morals and my values
Right.
throughout that decade and a half, But like you were saying about Brittany and her success, it came from my mind. It was because I believed that I was going to get free. And the whole time I was incarcerated, I started to realize your mentality equals your reality. I understood what I was allowing myself to think is what was becoming true. I always felt like I was going to get free. I finally got free. I always knew that somebody would see my potential and see the intellect in me. Judge Sharp happened to see that. Brittany happened to see that. All the people that supported Brittany and her work saw that. And I was starting to really just accept and understand, okay, this is how life works. This is how you manifest the life that you want to live. And so
Exactly.
the whole time I was locked up, I was holding back emotions, and then finally getting free, I was able to let out those emotions that were good and bad. The good ones because now I understood how to manifest good in my life, and the bad ones because of the traumatic situation I had just endured in that life.
Did you find yourself, man, as you was taking that ride, that sweet ride? That's what we gonna call it, that sweet ride to freedom, because that's what that was.
Man, that
But
part.
did you find yourself, man, just kind of looking back over your life at that very moment, man, all of your journey from childhood to being sentenced to life to getting clemency and standing there right now and saying, I made it. Were you able to process that? Like, did that all go back through your mind on that very day?
It did, but that's an ongoing process. We gotta understand that a lot of things aren't a one moment thing. It's a
Right.
continuous process. And it continued from that day to this day. I wake up every day and I'm grateful. I think about the young men from where I come from that still caught in that life. I think about the young men that I love dearly like brothers that have lost their life to that life. I think about all the men that's in those human warehouses that I was once housed at that might not never come home or still got 10, 20, 15, 30, 35 years before they come home. That's a very, very long time. And I think about it every day. So yes, that's a continuing process.
Hey man, we got about 15 minutes left, man, and I wanna talk about I wanna kind of shift, maybe pivot a little, and talk
Hmm.
about what you're doing now because after you came out, you never sat down, man. You came out, you hit the ground running like a damn track star, and you started putting your knowledge and the things that you learned to work, man. And so, you know, you became like a tech entrepreneur. So I want to talk about that because I want people to get a sense and understand that just because the system decided to throw you away, you didn't give up on yourself. And when you got out, you made good on what you wanted to do. What did you start? What's the tech entrepreneurship about?
So thank you for understanding that this has been something I've been working towards. I
Hmm.
worked on it from the moment I got them handcuffs put on me.
Right.
Mary Beard, she is a professor, and she said, actions without study is fatal. Study without actions is futile. So I didn't want to let all my time go to waste. All them books I had read, all them years I had spent incarcerated, I wanted to make sure I utilized it and put it into work. And I've been working towards an app that I call an empowerment app. You know, a lot of guys and a lot of women get on social media looking for something positive, looking for that motivation, looking for that encouragement, that empowerment. And sometimes we find it and then get distracted by the other stuff. Sometimes we immediately get distracted. What if we could have that without the distractions? What if we can have that good word in the morning, in the
Right.
evening, on our lunch break? So before we lay down at night, what if my brother would have had something that could peep
Right.
his mind state at that moment and give him that uplifting and encouraging word, give him something to commiserate with, you know? And so I've been working on an app, and I call it Like You because I want people to like themselves, love themselves, but also understand that there's somebody out there like them that's going through what they're going through. And Like You is still in the works. I'm still working to get everything built up. And in the meantime, while that's getting built up, I've been working on my memoir. You know, I've been blessed to land a publishing deal. The book will be released either end of 23 or some towards the spring of 24, you know, and it'll encapsulate my journey while also giving a nod to all the authors that put their work into books and that helped guide me, motivate me, encourage me, enlighten me. I'm hoping that I can convey that we are more than this monolithic monster that y'all perceive us
Right.
as. You know what I'm saying? That we aren't the stereotypes. So I'm trying to break the stereotypes and change the paradigm. I'm trying to show young guys where I come from that you got transferable skills. You know, a lot of
Right.
times we talking code in the streets. You can become a cryptographer. You know, you can learn to encrypt messages or decipher messages for, like you said, the US military, you know, or
Right.
you can do it for one of the intelligence agencies. You know, we have become used to looking at certain jobs as outside of our capabilities. And we actually have skills that can go towards those jobs. We have transferable skills. Like I said, it takes a lot of courage to do some of the reckless activities we do in the streets. And if we could apply that courage towards something that was positive and productive, we have skills that require a lot of creativity and a lot of intellect. If we could apply those skills towards something that was positive and productive, just think about where we would be as a people and where humanity would be as just this creation we call America.
You made a quote one time that I read. You said that acknowledgement is the first step to improvement. And Chris, let me say this to you, and you and I have had some conversations, one on one.
Mhm.
I didn't expect to feel like I feel right now in this interview. I have a new respect for you, man. And you and I, we cool and we talk from time to
Yeah.
time, but I didn't realize, man, your journey. Like, I don't think I can be as transparent as I can in saying that I really didn't take it as serious as it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's easy for us on the outside to look at people that have gone through things like you've gone through and say, well, you know, he did the crime, he did the time, he got lucky. Because, you know, people say shit like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and I wish that everybody could see this conversation we having tonight. I'm definitely going to try to post it everywhere I can. I can think of about 10 young men right off the top of my head that need to hear this and see you, man. And you know, I know you do some speaking, some motivational speaking and stuff. Are you planning on doing anything more with that, man, to try to get your message across? Because, bro, look, people need to hear what you're talking about, Chris. They really do.
Yeah. I've been shying away from the spotlight, but I'm gonna turn up now, especially with the book getting ready to come out. So I appreciate you even wanting me on here. I appreciate you for having that level of respect and perspective of me. So I appreciate that. And yes, I'm gonna definitely start speaking a whole lot more. Yeah, person can reach out to me, either email me or on social media, but I'm definitely gonna start speaking a whole lot more. And I'm glad you acknowledged it. This wasn't luck. You know, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Exactly.
I worked for this shit. You know what I'm saying? Judge
Hmm.
Sharp wouldn't have done what he done if I hadn't have done what I done. Brittany wouldn't have heard about me had I not done what I done and had Judge Sharp and the journalists believing in me and speaking out about me. So I could have easily went in there and kept doing the same things I was doing in the street, getting high, getting drunk, gang banging, selling drugs, you know, because all of that stuff still exists behind the wall. It's
Right.
just a different form of it, but it's the same things. And I could have kept engaging into that. And I'm not knocking nobody that does still engage into that, but me, Chris Young, I wanted something different. I was tired of what I was getting from that lifestyle. You know, they say pain is the best mechanism for change. And I had endured so much. I had
Right.
been scarred on my soul, and I didn't want to feel that pain no more. And I started making decisions that led to me getting Judge Sharp to speak out for me, led to journalists reaching out to Brittany for me, that just led to all the beautiful things that I was able to manifest in my life. So thank you for acknowledging it wasn't luck.
Well, I tell you what, man, I'm so proud to know you, man. I feel very blessed to have you in my life, you know, and it's a great thing. That's why I wanted to talk to you tonight, man. I just felt like, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know, we both have been on journeys in life, man, that brought us to a point a year or so ago where we get to know each other, man, and we get an opportunity to talk as men. And even though I'm considerably older than you, considerably older than you, I learned so much from you, man.
Yeah.
From, you know, and I look at you and I say, I hope that my sons, you know, can can be like this young man, a young man that doesn't let anything stop him. That he's gonna run through a wall. He doesn't see a wall as an obstacle. He just sees it as, you know, a small deterrent. That he knows he's gonna either run through it, go over it, but he's gonna get past it. And that's what I see in you, man. And I just, like I said, man, I'm really taken aback. I'm almost speechless as I listen to you, man. I'm so proud of you, Chris, man. Uh, you know, and this is what
Thank you.
conversation
Thank
with
you.
Chevalier is all about. Having the conversation, you know, a lot of people said I should be talking about cigars because I'm a cigar guy, but I believe in having a conversation over a cigar and a drink, and we can talk about meaningful things because when I'm sitting in the lounge, this is kind of shit we talk about, Chris. We talk about politics. We talk
Yeah.
about, you know, the law. We talk about relationships. We talk about being transparent and being vulnerable and how being a prideful and, you know, what we not gonna do. And very
Yeah.
rarely as men do we sit down and have conversations like these where we just keep it 100, man, and put shit out on the table. That's what we got to learn how to do, man. And I just got to bow to you on this one, brother. This was an amazing conversation. I got one more question for you. I read something about Columbia University Safe Lab. What is that?
So that is something that Desmond Patton, he's a professor. He's not with Columbia University no more, but he was working to acknowledge the clues that are within the social media platforms that prove and show that violence is about to occur, to prove that, okay, if a young man tweets this or a young woman tweets this, most likely they're stressed and depressed and they're getting ready to do this or do that. And if we start paying attention to the platforms, pay attention to the emojis, the vernacular, that we can start intervening and prevent a lot of these altercations that most likely stem from social media arguments, you know. And so salute to Professor Desmond Patton for having me a part of the Safe Lab. It was something that was a group of collaborators from social workers to computer programmers to community activists, where we was trying to identify any and every little clue we could about our young men and young women that's going through these very, very traumatic situations, whether it be suicide, whether it be the death of a loved one, because a lot of young men and young women are dealing with their friends being murdered, their friends being robbed, whatever that they're dealing with is very traumatic, and we need to try to prevent it. We need to try to intervene, and I was blessed to be a part of that group.
All right, so I got one last question for you, brother. Hell of a journey, highs, lows, times where it seemed like the odds were insurmountable. You've made it through it all, Chris. You really have, man. So as you look at your life and you got all these things going for you, what's next, brother?
Like I said, the book and the app, and to generalize it and sum it all up, I'm gonna keep breaking stereotypes. I'm gonna keep changing the paradigm. I'm gonna make people
Yes.
acknowledge the power that is in every human being, but specifically young Black men and young Black women. I don't want people to keep looking at them as something they can discard. Unfortunately, a lot of times we look at it like trash. They need to be locked up. No, we're not. We are kings, queens, scientists, creators, innovators, and we just need somebody to invest in us, not only financially, but emotionally.
Yeah.
Show these kids, show these young men and young women that you care about them. A lot of times we not feeling like nobody care about us because we're caught up in this cycle of mama addicted to drugs, daddy not here, daddy locked up, daddy dead, whatever the case may be, whatever the variables in the equation is, that child is not feeling love. And love is a very integral emotional thing that's a necessity for human beings. We are
Right.
social creatures and we are meant to be loved. We are meant to have love. We need love. And when we're not feeling love, we're going to go search for it in some type of way.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's also leading to a lot of other destructive habits and situations.
That's right, man. I'll tell
And
you what, brother.
I'm gonna keep trying to break that, prevent that, and keep showing people that this is a different way to help fix that. It's no one solution. So any organization, any grassroots organization that's trying to prevent that, I salute them. Any entrepreneur that's openly speaking about that, hey, I came from this and this is what I'm doing now, I salute that.
I tell you what, man. And before we go, I want to acknowledge the comments, Chris. I don't know if you can see the comments. Man,
I keep peeking down here and
yeah,
there.
I'm looking down. While you talking, like I'm glancing down every now and then. Man, people have really enjoyed our conversations, man. I'm sitting back, people saying, Chris, you rock. I am going to try to get this on YouTube, Monica. Um, man, you have affected a lot of people tonight. And I actually want to have you come back after the book comes out, bro. Sit down and talk and just, first, hopefully I can get me an autographed copy. Just let me. I'll buy my book because I want to support the book.
Yeah.
But hopefully I can catch up with you. And you can sign my copy. But I I definitely want to have you come back, man. And I want to go a little further with our conversation. I think there's a lot of gems that were dropped, a lot of nuggets that were probably received tonight from you, brother. And man, I salute you. And before we go, I want to do a toast to your brother. May he continue to fly high. I know he's looking down on you right now, man, and he is proud of you because I'm right here with you and I'm proud as hell of you, man. So cheers to your brother, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And for all of you that are in here, this has been Conversations with Chevalier. Before we go, hit that drop down up there and follow Chris. It's Chris L. Young. Follow him, follow me. Everybody on here, follow everybody else. Make sure I'll be posting this after this is over. Go back, repost it, share it. Please DM me. Let me know what you think about Conversations with Chevalier. Going forward in 2023, we're going to have a lot of meaningful conversations. We won't be just talking about cigars. We'll be having meaningful conversations over cigars. And so if you guys got some things you want to talk about, hit me up in my DM. Let me know, and we'll put it together and we'll talk about it. This has been Conversations with Chevalier with my guest, my man Chris L. Young, entrepreneur. Y'all look out. Big things are coming from that brother, and I'm definitely going to be talking to you again, man. Let me see. I got a comment pinned down here too before we go. Somebody asked, how can they help, Chris? Is there anything that they can donate to or philanthropic efforts that you have going on that people can donate to?
Yes, there's a lot of ways to help, and specifically philanthropic. They can donate to Buried Alive Project. That is the organization that Brittany started that gets lawyers to pro bono represent people incarcerated for drug crimes. It's federal drug crimes. And you can donate to Buried Alive Project. You can donate to Girls Embracing Mothers. That's another nonprofit that Brittany started. Or you can find any nonprofit that you feel like that is doing the good work and donate to them. Last but not least, if you see somebody, just be kind, man. It's nothing like a kind word saying, hello, how you doing? Oh, you look nice. How's your day been? You know, just kind, good, positive energy goes a long way.
So you guys got that Buried Alive Project. Also, man, I'm wearing one of the hoodies, Manifest Freedom. Tell us about that, because that's another initiative that Brittany started last year, I believe. Can you tell us about Manifest Freedom?
Yes, so that's another nonprofit she started. Manifest Freedom Fund is going to donate and give grants to social. It's going to donate to people that's been impacted by the criminal justice system that are entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur that has a social impact business, whether it be something in technology, something in food and beverage, something in hospitality, no matter what the business is, if it has a social component that's trying to help people and you're impacted by the criminal justice system, she gives non-dilutive grants to those entrepreneurs so they can try to have the capital to not just survive, but thrive, to actually take their business to the next level.
Right on. All right. All right. Well, there it is, everybody. This has been another episode of Conversations with Chevalier with my man, Chris Young. Man, Chris, thank you for coming on. I'm going to post this, guys, and I'll put those organizations in the comments so you guys can go back and follow those. Hey, you guys just met an amazing brother. I've had the privilege of talking to him several times, and he's just an amazing man. So, you know, when you see people that are going through things, you know, save your judgment. You know, you never know what they have to offer, and he is a perfect example of that. Again, this has been Conversations with Chevalier. Thank you guys for joining us. The Chevalier lifestyle is about 4 things. We smoke the cigar, sip the whiskey, sing to the music, and savor the cuisine. Thank you for joining Conversations with Chevalier. I will see you guys for another episode in January. I think the next episode is going to be on January 9th. So stay tuned, go in and follow, and like and share. Thank you very much. Good night.